You are listening to a new special of France Today in a podcast and on Centrale Milano, 1575 kHz. Why a single event is not proof of climate change. Every summer, punctual as a Swiss watch, the narrative of climate terror arrives. A hot day in Paris becomes the definitive proof of the apocalypse. The media flare up, politicians ride the wave, and the public is swept up by an alarm that has little to do with science and much to do with ideology. The mechanism is always the same. A single event is taken, ripped from its historical context, and turned into confirmation of a thesis already decided in advance. It is called climate terrorism, and it works because no one checks the data. We have done it. The historical series of May 27 in Paris over the last 7 years shows no warming trend. The maximums oscillate between 16 and 24 degrees Celsius, with no upward direction. A single heat episode is, and can never be, proof of systemic climate change. Listen to the numbers, and judge for yourself. The temperatures of May 27 over the last 7 years. Over the past 7 years, the May 27 day in Paris has seen maximum temperatures swing between 16 and 24 degrees Celsius. In 2019, the maximum was 19 degrees Celsius, while the minimum reached 14 degrees Celsius, accompanied by 1.2 millimeters of rain and rainy conditions. In 2020, the maximum rose to 23 degrees Celsius, with a minimum of 16 degrees Celsius, no rain, under a partially cloudy sky. In 2021, a maximum of 21 degrees Celsius and a minimum of 11 degrees Celsius were recorded, again without precipitation, but with a partially cloudy sky. In 2022, the maximum reached 24 degrees Celsius, the minimum held at 12 degrees Celsius, and the sky remained cloudy with no rain. The following year, 2023, temperatures settled at a maximum of 23 degrees Celsius and a minimum of 10 degrees Celsius, with cloudy conditions and no precipitation. 2024 saw a cooler day, with a maximum of 16 degrees Celsius and a minimum of 10 degrees Celsius, accompanied by light rain of 1 millimeter. Finally, in 2025, the maximum was 19 degrees Celsius, the minimum 11 degrees Celsius, with 0.3 millimeters of rain and a partially cloudy sky. The average of the maximum temperatures of these 7 values is around 20.7 degrees Celsius, indicating variability that remains within moderate limits. Source: https://www.meteor.com/Europe/France/France/Paris?page equals past-weather-Google_vignette. Absence of an upward trend. Carefully observing these data, it becomes evident that the maximums do not show a clear upward trajectory. The figures alternate between peaks of 24 degrees Celsius in 2022 and lower values, such as the 16 degrees Celsius of 2024, without a defined direction. The lack of a clear trend makes it difficult to argue that May 27 is participating in continuous warming. The irregular pattern of minimum temperatures, ranging between 10 and 16 degrees Celsius, further reinforces the idea of a cyclical nature rather than a systemic change. Who weaponizes single events? The greatest risk is to use a narrow datum to refute, or, conversely, to reinforce a climate thesis, without taking the totality of evidence into account. When media and politicians claim to observe a climate change based on a single day of higher temperatures, they weaken the credibility of the discussion and fuel a climate of polarization. In contrast, a rigorous assessment of historical data, such as that presented for May 27 in Paris, shows that there is no evident upward course in the last 7 years. It is therefore essential to invite the public to demand medium and long-term analyses rather than accept hasty conclusions. Conclusions for the listener. In summary, while the city of Paris is experiencing a period of hotter weather compared with previous weeks, the historical data for May 27 over the last 7 years show no systematic warming trend. The variability of maximum temperatures, moving between 16 and 24 degrees Celsius, confirms that a single episode is insufficient to demonstrate climate change. Our mission, as an informative voice, is to remind the audience of the importance of looking beyond immediately visible anomalies and to base opinions on in-depth, contextualized analysis. Stay with us for further insights. Because meteorological truth requires patience and rigor, not temporary emoji. On Rachel editorial, the excuse of the Parisian summer for not doing the math. Today's newspaper brings us a new heat wave in Paris, with the temperature reaching 19 degrees Celsius. Let's set aside the sweaty hands of the protesters and consult meteoart.com. Over the past 7 years, May 27 has shown maximums between 16 and 24 degrees Celsius, with an average of 20.7. The data, framed on a table of a few numbers, show a variation more chaotic than a broken vinyl record, not a trend line. No red striped graph climbs upward. The oscillations are pure, like the price of coffee at the bar. It is a classic elementary statistics exercise. Take a single value and proclaim it definitive proof of climate change. But science, alas, does not work that way. A weather event is a snapshot, not a movie. To demonstrate global warming, you need decades of time series, not the chapter of a single episode of weather drama. Without a sequence of stable data, every conclusion is like basing a conviction on a single typo in a book. Looking at the May 27 series in Paris, we find no upward trend. The maximums have fluctuated. 2019, 19 degrees. 2020, 23 degrees. 2021, 21 degrees. 2022, 24 degrees. 2023, 23 degrees. 2024, 16 degrees. 2025, 19 degrees. The minimum thereafter varies between 10 and 16 degrees Celsius, with no inclination toward heat. So if someone wants to turn this year's 19 degrees into a beacon of climate change, they must at least ensure the long-term average is not already doing the same, which evidently it is not. Then why do these politicians and commentators rush to weaponize a sunny day? Perhaps because it is easier to convince voters with a photo of a crowded square than with a 30-year graph, or because drama sells better than good analysis. In any case, the next time they hear the whistle of a thermometer, ask for context, not the plot twist. Science is not a superhero film. It is a long marathon of data. Koan of the day, monk. If the sun burns at night, is it really hot? Master, only those who have not looked at the calendar can say. Now back to the news. That's all for now. From the Paris desk, this is Rachel Costa. This is Radio Nizza with Centrale Milano 1575 kHz.